Hi everybody, meteorologist Joe Cioffi. It's Tuesday night and had to do the live stream a little bit late today. By the way, I know the live stream came up earlier this evening for a brief moment. I was actually live streaming on Facebook and I accidentally hit the start button when I shouldn't have, and the YouTube data was all still in there. So that's why a live stream showed up, but there wasn't anything to it. So anyway, just apologize. I just wanted to apologize to some of you because I did see several messages about it. This is the real live stream, so we're going to get right to it tonight. And we're going to take a look at the activity in the eastern part of the United States. Considering the fact that it's been so incredibly warm here for the last 7 or 8 weeks as a whole, the fact that we actually saw some snow today coming out of the sky, not here in New York City per se, but and on Long Island, but in some areas of northern New Jersey, the Hudson Valley, and particularly in northeastern Pennsylvania, we did see some wet snow either mix in or in some cases actually fall as a steady wet snow for a little while. It might have even whitened up the ground in a few spots in elevated areas. Didn't really do very much, but just the fact that we were able to do this, even coming off of yesterday where we had temperatures up in the upper 60s to around or just over 70, and tonight with this low that's developing east of the New Jersey coast and moving away to the northeast, we're seeing temperatures in the mid 30s to low 40s. So it shows you how quick things can change and how the atmosphere at least attempts to normalize itself when it starts to get stretched, and it has been stretched with respect to how warm we have been. By the way, if you look on this eastern satellite loop on the far right, go straight east of New Jersey, and you'll see this ball of clouds and thunderstorms. That is actually Tropical Storm Rina, which the Hurricane Center christened earlier today. It is moving toward the north, and it's going to be turning to the northeast and accelerating away. So another tropical storm, another name gets kicked off the list on what has been an incredibly active season indeed. And this is not going to impact land areas at all. It'll become extra tropical as it moves away to the northeast. In the meantime, we are waiting the next change, and that next change is going to be colder air. Before we get to that, though, I just want to show you the radar from this evening was actually, for this wave, wound up being very impressive. Models for the last couple of days were not particularly bullish with the rainfall. The only model, I'm going to tell you, and we see criticisms of this oftentimes, and I think it's not always valid. The NAM did very well with this particular event, so let's bear that in mind. The NAM was insistent that the northern fringe of the rain would get further north, that there would be a heavier rain that will occur, which it did, and that there would be a pocket of cold air on the northwest side where there would be some mixing or even a change over to wet snow. So the NAM did a very good job with this overall. Certainly it did a good job with picking up the trend of this system being further north. Now, this is all going to be going out during the overnight, and weather conditions are going to improve from the standpoint of rain, but it might take all day long on Wednesday to get clouds out of the way in the east. In the west, we have a very impressive looking satellite view as another big storm that's been sitting off the coast. Look at this thing on the satellite, on the visible loop here. It's just really impressive, this large giant swirl that just continues to drop ever so slowly southward, and you've got this arm of moisture that is offshore and swinging eastward toward the coast of Northern California, Oregon, and coming ashore into Washington. So this is going to be another round of rain and snow, and with cold air that is still pinned east of the west of the Rockies toward the coast. There's going to be some significant snowfalls just inland of the coast in the northwest. We also have a stream of moisture coming in over Baja California into the southwest, into Arizona, New Mexico, and streaming eastward across Texas and Oklahoma. Is that a little bit of a subtropical jet there that is running southwest to northeast. So very interesting upper air pattern that has been gradually taking shape. I think this has all been kind of just a long process that we're going through, a long evolution. I don't know where the pattern ultimately is going to wind up, but it seems like we're trying to set up for something down the road in terms of the long haul. So I'm going to pull up the GFS here, and we'll take a look at where we're going over the next few days, because the next big thing is going to be the shot of very cold air coming into the eastern part of the United States. Now, on Wednesday, slow improvement, and Thursday, not really too much happening, but you can see the cold front on up into the western lakes with this big high that's coming into Montana by Thursday morning. And that polar front, I hesitated to call it an Arctic front. It's a little too early for that, but this polar front swings across upstate New York with some snow squalls, and this is where the cold air gets funneled all the way down from northeastern Canada straight down into the Carolinas. You got a big high like this up near Lake Superior. When you get, if this were if we were somewhere in January or February with something like this, it'd be pretty certain that we'd be seeing temperatures in the single digits and below zero, pretty far, extending fairly far to the south. So it's a very impressive cold air mass for this time of year. The core of the cold air stays up into northern New England, but because of the orientation of the surface high and this northerly wind, that cold air gets dragged down pretty far south. And the bottom in terms of temperatures will be Saturday morning, where I think there may be a number of record lows set across much of the eastern part of the United States. Let me show you, as far as below normal temperatures are concerned, here's the look with respect. This is the anomaly, and the purplish areas, you start to get into the -12, -16, -20 relative to normal, and that's a fairly large area of the northeast and mid-Atlantic states that will be seeing anomalies that are pretty high. And with regards to temperatures, I'll show you the 2-meter temperatures here, and let me just punch that up here. There we go. So the blue would be the extent of 32 degrees. So you can see how extensive the freezing line goes down almost into northern Georgia, northern South Carolina, and we've got 20s and teens all over the place. So this is indeed a very, very cold air mass for this time of year, make no mistake. Now, this time of year, these cold shots only last for a day or two, and that's what we're going to see with this. The high is going to eventually pull out to the northeast as it moves into New England. Now, even Sunday morning will wind up being fairly cold, especially away from warmer urban centers. But then this next weather system coming in from the lakes, it's not especially strong. It's actually rather weak and weakens as it moves toward the coastline. So we don't see anything here other than maybe some passing showers here later Sunday or Sunday night, and perhaps some snow and rain mixed in areas in upstate New York and in interior New England. Now, let me just back up because I want to show you, I want to take a look at what's going to be happening out in the west. And I'll use the western view here, which is a little wider, so you can see from the perspective of the Pacific with that big storm. So here is, on Wednesday, that arm of moisture that I showed you moves in to the Pacific Northwest during the day on Wednesday. You see the snows into the Northern Rockies, although the air is a little bit warmer than what we've seen lately, so there's actually some rain in the mix. And then we have a low that comes into Oregon on Friday morning with a bit more rain and snow, then a bit of a break, and then early next week there's a fairly significant system that heads up towards western Washington, and you can see that there's an extensive area of snow and rain that even gets down into central California and in the Northern Rockies. So at least the West is going to be seeing a fairly active scenario here going into next week, while that cold air pulls out of the eastern part of the United States. Let's go to the upper air pattern, and we'll take a look at where we're going with all of this in the long range, because I think there is still there's quite a bit of uncertainty. There's a few things happening that are going to be important here, and one is the fact that we are continuing to see the all models, trying to show higher than normal pressures in the Atlantic on up to Greenland in the North Atlantic. So that's going to be important, because if that does truly wind up happening, it will be displacing the main jet stream further south and ultimately displacing cold air further south. Now, where I'm thinking here the model has some issues is trying to, it's got all this energy that's up in Canada. I don't know whether it knows how to handle it correctly. You've got a deep trough along and just off the west coast. You've got some troughing off the east coast, and just sort of a flat flow in the middle when we move into next week. And the midday cycle update, there is a tendency for troughing to come into the east. But if you look up near Greenland and on up through Labrador, from Newfoundland to Labrador, there's a tendency here for higher than normal pressures there and across all of the polar regions. So that displaces the jet further to the south. I would just merely suggest that if we were deeper into the winter time here, a pattern like this has the potential to be problematic for somebody with regards to snow and with regards also to cold. It's just that because of where we are at this time, we're in early November. We get what we get here in early November, which isn't very much. In all the years I've been doing this, I can probably count on my hand the number of times it's actually snowed in the month of November in terms of accumulating snow. It doesn't happen very often, and most Novembers you don't wind up with anything. I'm talking about down the coast. What's unusual today, by the way, is the fact that areas are not too far from the coast, around in eastern Pennsylvania and parts of the Catskills and so on, actually saw their first snowflakes of the season, and much of upstate New York has not. So usually the lakes region winds up with the lake effect first, and then we get it down coastal wise a little bit later on. This year it's in reverse, and I would suggest that might be something to pay attention to. That might be kind of throwing a little hint out there as to where the winter may be going. I may very well be wrong on this, but I'm going to pay attention to the next couple of weather systems that have an impact of the possibility of frozen or freezing precipitation, to see how they play out. Because oftentimes, weather patterns in the wintertime are set fairly early in terms of how storms behave. So I want to see if I can stay ahead of the curve and not have to wait for 2 or 3 events to happen before I figure out that part of the puzzle. So when we go in the long range, you can see that still plenty of high pressure across the polar regions. So we have to pay attention to that as we head into the middle and latter part of November. Some of the ensemble members, by the way, have been giving storm signals for something along the lines of during Thanksgiving week. I'm not ready to go down that particular road yet, because I'm not a big fan of the using of the ensembles. I don't want to like to rely on them too heavily, because there's too much variability in them as you get out into the longer term. Now, looking at Europe, doesn't really look too problematic until Friday night, when we have a weather system coming into northern England, from Ireland to northern England, and eventually into Western Europe. And by the way, a few days ago, the long-range forecast was trying to bring some snow for England and for Ireland. We're going to see when we get into the long range on this run whether we've got anything resembling that. Low pressure in the Adriatic Sea, fairly deep, so some heavy snows in some of the elevated areas along the shores, inland of the shores of the Adriatic, and that low drops down toward the boot heel of Italy, towards Sicily. In the meantime, we still got some showers that come through across into England. Another big storm moves across Scotland. This is at day 9, and on up into Norway, Sweden, and so on. And let's see, after that, it just seems like a series of Atlantic lows coming in, but nothing, I would suppose at this time of year, getting into the stormy season, that wouldn't be a big surprise. Quick check of southeastern Canada. And I'm going to really try to make sure I do this on a daily basis, folks, because I know a lot of you from all over the place, from Canada, from the Maritimes, to from England, from Ireland, from the mainland of Europe. So I want to try and make sure I give a little bit of coverage to everybody. Not going to be able to go in depth all the time, but I'll try. But you can see here, it looks like at the end of the week, we go into the weekend as that cold air moves into the east. We have some rain and snows moving into Labrador and over Newfoundland. That storm system rides away to the northeast. And then as we now toward day 6 and 7, which is Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, we start to get another weather system here that looks like it passes near Nova Scotia and south of Newfoundland and out. And then a little bit more kind of a weak system there around day 10 and 11. Why don't we punch up, we'll get you, I know everybody likes that snow. We'll show you the snowfall map. There we go. So here's your 10-day snowfall for southeastern Canada, which looks fairly ample, and we'll punch back Europe up. You can see the 10-day snowfall here. Again, not too shabby. The Highlands up in Scotland and northern England, picking up some snows, and of course the Alps, the Swiss Alps, the Italian Alps, and then you start to get into Eastern Europe and into Russia and Siberia. And of course back home in the U.S., we'll show you the 10-day snowfall based on the GFS. Again, the greatest amounts will be up in the Northern Rockies and in the Northwest. A little bit of activity right along the Great Lakes and into southeastern Canada. Some activity up in far northern upstate New York and into northern New England. I'm not so sure about what's being shown down and through Pennsylvania. That may or may not be there, but whatever that is, if it is there, it's probably going to be light stuff. So let me come back here and put my little face up on the screen. It's election day, of course, and it's a little bit busy in the newsroom, so it's made things a little bit hectic, and I'm kind of got a little extra tired today for some reason. But let me just give everybody a big hello, okay? I'm going to scroll through your comments for the first time. Let's see what we got. Not letting, there we go. Let me scroll up. So we've got Jacob, Danilo, Cliff, Nadia, Cliff Newton. Good evening. I think you're new to the boards. Jacob again. I'm sorry. Robert Hurley, Nadia Post, John Sachs, Wayne, Ruru, Anthony Orr, Scott Olson, Robert Kelsey, Raymond is here. Just want to make sure I got everybody. If I left you out, I'm sorry. Okay. Steve Lyons, Scott Olson, Jake, Doug Wetzel, Taco Bell, Robert Russo, Zachary Grybos. Good to see everybody. John Sachs, Nadia Post, Raleigh Voigt. Okay, I think I got everybody. I'm trying. Do I think, is Anthony Kenny? Oh, Doug Wetzel, thank you. Coffee time. I agree. I'm trying. I'm going to get a refill. Thank you very much for hitting Super Chat tonight. Do I think we will get a lot of snow this winter in New York City? You know, that I have to tell you, I'm a horse player. I love horse racing. I've been following horse racing for many years. Not so much the gambling side of it as I do like the actual sport side of it and the history of great horses. And I like to play every once in a while. And looking at this from the standpoint of odds, let me just point out that for some areas, not all, but for some areas, particularly mine, we're starting to ask for the possibility of a sixth year in a row of above normal snowfall. You're kind of pushing the envelope here in some instances. I guess a slightly subpar year from the standpoint of snowfall would not necessarily be a surprise. I think a lot will depend on whether we can get out of this dryish pattern that we've been in, certainly for the last couple of months. I mean, we broke it for a while in the spring last year into early summer, but then it went dry again. So, it's entirely possible that we could have a colder than average winter or a near normal winter in terms of temperatures and have a quiet, relatively quiet, or perhaps below normal activity as far as precip is concerned. I'm not saying that that's what I would forecast. I'm not big on the long range. It's something that I've never been able to get my head around. But you can have a cold, dry winter and a cold, relatively snowless winter. It can happen. It can be the opposite of last year, as I pointed out on my Facebook live stream. Last year it was warm, except when we had some storms around, and we did manage a couple of fairly sizable snowfalls in the Northeast during last winter. And much of the Northeast, actually north of 40 degrees north, roughly, finished with above normal snowfall. So the snow came at the right time. The opposite could happen. It could be cold all the time, and then when the storms come, it warms up and rains, especially for the coast. Maybe not so much inland, but for the coast, that's something that can happen quite a bit. Farmers in West Pennsylvania were saying, Ruru 25, they're expecting a bad winter this year. Is this true? Well, the last 2 winters in western PA and in the Ohio Valley have been really non-existent winters. So anything compared to that will be bad. So they're just reverting back to normal is going to give the illusion of it being a bad winter. So that's where I'm thinking my head's at right now. Anthony Orr, off-topic weather. I'm stalling to read the question because I sort of read it already, and I know the answer to this, and I'm trying to remember. No hurricanes are running around. Can I name the horse who won the Breeders' Cup Classic twice? Okay. Do I want to say... I don't know if it was Ali Sheba? I'm just guessing off the top of my head. I'm trying to remember. I used to have a great memory for these things, Anthony, and I just don't anymore. Okay. I do know Miesk won the mile twice, and Goldakova won the mile 3 times. I remember that. Ouija board won the Filly and Mare Turf twice. But I'm going to say, I don't know. Maybe was it Ali Sheba? I'm just taking a guess. Okay. Joseph Harcourt. Any possibility of troughing, digging further south over the next couple of weeks? I live in Mississippi. We'll enjoy some colder than average November, December weather. Well, you know what? I wouldn't say no. I think the overall upper air pattern looks to me like it wants to get more dynamic over time. We certainly saw that nice deep trough a week ago, and I think that really set the ball in motion in terms of where the weather pattern is going. Tis now. Thank you, Anthony. The weather pattern is going for the month of November. All of a sudden, that ridge in the east is gone. That storm did a very good job. I mean, the ridge did appear for a couple of days late last week, but it's done, and for the time being. So, yeah, you know what? I think that we're going to see some interesting stuff over the next couple of months. And by the way, having looked at the on Facebook and some of the weather groups that were putting up the Euro weeklies, I'm not, again, take this with a huge grain of salt, but the Euro weeklies were especially cold through much of December, and also especially snowy throughout much of the U.S., particularly north of 35 degrees north. So it's that particular model, at the very least, is pointing to a cold and snowy December. Now, I did see Taco Bell wanted to know about Rena hitting the UK. You know what? I'm just going to look off, because I meant to look at this before and I didn't get a chance to. Let me just take a look and see how the model reflects on that. It actually, it actually holds together as an identifiable entity on the GFS, and it's going to be an extratropical storm, and it does move it over Northern Ireland into northern England, right along the English-Scottish border by Friday night, Saturday. So that's that weather system that comes in there Friday night, Saturday is actually the extratropical version of Tropical Storm Rena. It will make the transition over into an extra tropical storm. That is going to be happening at the same time that we're going to see this cold blast coming into the eastern part of the United States. Kevin Francis is going to try to make the Babylon Library on Sunday. Thank you. That's at 2 o'clock, the North Babylon Library, if you're on Long Island, tomorrow night or Wednesday night, if you're having to be watching this during the early morning hours on Wednesday, at 7 p.m. Wednesday, November 8th, I will be at the Middle Country Library in Center Reach. There's been a change in venue. The extension in Selden is undergoing renovation, and I'll be at the Center Reach branch, which is only about 2 miles away off the same main road. So it's easy to find. You can just check it online if you happen to be on Long Island and you want to come out and see me. I'll be talking about wintertime weather and all sorts of meteorology stuff tomorrow at Middle Country, Sunday at North Babylon, and if those dates don't work for you, the next one is going to be on Sunday, December 3rd. I don't know what the time of it is. I'm going to say 2 o'clock, but I'll double check in Longwood, at the Longwood Library in Middle Island, New York. So there's plenty coming up. I just booked a new one for January 8th, Blue Point, Bayport Blue Point Library. So there's plenty of these. And then I'll be in Floral Park in February. And if you are in the New York City area within about 100 miles or so in any direction, if you want me to come out to your local library, give them a nudge to get in touch with me, and we'll see if we can work something out. Because I've tried to reach out to some libraries for Long Island. It's easy for me, but elsewhere it's kind of tough. So if they reach out to me, it might be easier. So let your library know that I'm available, and I might just be able to come out. Trish and Lou want to know any snow accumulation for Wisconsin this weekend. Weekend highs 31 to 36 during the day. Let me just take a look here. And by the way, Trish and Lou, where in Wisconsin? Okay, because I think the main favorite areas for snow at the moment were pretty much more in the northern part of the state as opposed to the south. In fact, looking over the next 10 days, the GFS actually is fairly bullish on snowfall along the Michigan-Wisconsin border near the Upper Peninsula, but snow amounts get much less as you go. If you take a line, draw a line straight west from Green Bay, from there south, not too much, coating to an inch or so. But you start to get up to the northern part of the state, and you have some 6-inch plus amounts. So I'm guessing you'll probably have some opportunities for snow. Let's see. Record weather discussion. Most of record in New York City. Thank you, Anthony. Is 30 and 23. 30 is 30's happening. The record 30 is going to. I'm assuming this is for Saturday morning. If that's the case, yeah. I mean, a lot of the model guidance is actually down in the upper teens and low 20s for New York City, New Jersey, Long Island, and in interior New Jersey and up the Hudson Valley, low to mid-teens in some places. So it's a very, very cold air mass that is being indicated. Let's see. You got your trough Doug Crum pushing into North Georgia to take the tropical air mass with it. That's yes. This is going to push all the way down, as you saw with the below normal temperatures getting pretty far down. Abaddon is, it's got it. We're way too early for snow in the coastal plain of the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states. Way too early. It's early November. Sometimes in odd years you could get something in late November, after around, say, the 20th of the month. Your odds do start to grow, but they're still unusual. Once you get into December, the chances of getting some snow do increase. Okay, and if we get into a blocky pattern, it would suggest that maybe we might see some snows once we get into early December. But let's get there first. There's a lot of weather between now and then that we'll be having to deal with. All right, folks. It's been a great 30 minutes tonight. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you again, Doug Wetzel, for throwing some coin in the super chat. I really appreciate it very much. For those of you, I'm going to just pop up the link to the Joe Stradamus store, because Christmas is coming and you might just want to get your favorite weather geek something he can't live without, like a Joe Stradamus mug or a Joe Stradamus t-shirt or even Joe Stradamus shower curtains. I just put them up there, but of course, no obligation there. I just put it out there if you'd like. They're there for you to take a look at, and I appreciate it very much. And thank you again for being here. You know what I hope to do one day is to expand on all of this with regards to what I'm doing on YouTube and Facebook and everything else. I'm just really enjoying it very much, and little by little I'm going to get there. Doug Crum, I don't think I'm allowed to do that, to sell cigars on my maybe I am, I don't know. I don't have my own line of cigars. Okay, but I'll look into that and get the Joe Stradamus label on them. But anyway, we'll see how it goes. This is going to be a big test this winter, trying to handle all this. Was able to handle the hurricane season, which was absolutely tough with all those major storms. So let's see if we got a couple of snowstorms running around at the same time, and how we deal with that. All right, folks, have a great Tuesday going into Wednesday. Be safe, and we will be live streaming. I'm actually taking the day off tomorrow because of the talk I'm giving tomorrow night, so I may just live stream early in the day tomorrow, maybe early afternoon if my schedule permits. All right, have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.